Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein on today's episode. We've got news of new quarterbacks. We've got injuries. We've got an updated metric in the college football playoff universe. But most importantly, we have football, actual football to discuss. Week 0 is upon us. A very slimmed down slate of 5 games, all of which we will talk through in varying lengths. But I am excited to be here with you to talk about some actual on-the-field stuff at long last, sir. Welcome back.
It feels great, Ty. Thanks for joining me on this ride. I cannot wait to watch actual football, as strange, unusual, exhilarating as Week 0 can be, both domestically and abroad, because that is Week 0 now, that we have Kansas State and Iowa State in Ireland, in Dublin. This is great. I don't even like calling it Week 0 because it is something. 0 implies the absence of something, and we have something, right? We have football, we have excitement, we have a schedule, we have an appointment to watch football on Saturday. You know, when you sit down and they give you chips and salsa, that's not nothing. It's not the meal. When you sit down and they give you hot bread, good hot bread, at one of those type places. It's
right
not,
out of the oven, right?
Oh, is that bad? They could pull it apart, whether, you know, that kind of, that's not nothing. That's something that I treasure. And so I treasure this weekend, this Saturday, these matchups: Sam Houston, Western Kentucky, UC Davis, Mercer, Kansas, Fresno, you name it. I'm in, baby. Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Well, welcome back in, one and all. Thank you, Verballerhood, for joining us once more here as the season gets going officially. Hope you're going to stay with us for the entirety of the ride this year in 2025. Hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of our episodes. We will not be doing the live stream this Saturday night, but that will start up as we get into Week 1. So stay tuned to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
If you're interested in being a bit of a night owl and watching us live at midnight Eastern every Saturday, react.
What was our vanity URL for that stream last year?
Was it Smell Ty's Hair?
Smell
or was it
Ty's Hair
one?
sounds right. Saturday Night Ty. I always forget. We have so many vanity URLs. I guess you bought cocktober.com for this year. I don't know what that's going to link to, but that's Ty. He can explore that creative space.
Indeed. One other note that I should add before we dive into all of the action here on the pod. For those interested in verballers.com, supporting us a little bit more directly, getting the ad-free episodes, the bonus content, the Discord access, voting in the Verballer Top 12 poll, which, by the way, I'm going to reveal at the end of this episode. I got a ton of votes this year, just record-breaking number of votes that came in. Run the Board, our weekly pick'em game, where you pick thereabouts 10, 12, 14 games a week. That is now up and running at verballers.com. I will put together a gigantic post out on the Patreon that everybody can read that gives you the details of it. But if you finish in the top 5 of the year-long contest, you get a coveted seat on our board of trustees, Dan. We have a board meeting twice a year. We talk through show issues. We need your vote of confidence to continue. Otherwise, maybe it could be Chip Patterson sitting here. I don't know. I don't know what the board's going to say. We turn the board over. We hand the board over some interesting conundrums, and they return to us, in most cases, a vote of confidence. So
I hope so.
Run the Board. That's the year-long prize. We give weekly prizes.
Unless you're afraid to compete.
Unless you're afraid to compete. That's a completely different story.
If you're not willing to compete in a pick'em pool, that game's not for you. But I think we got some competitors in this audience, Ty.
I am very excited about Run the Board. You will hear me talk much more about it. As I am recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, I am still in the process of getting it set up. But by the time this sees the light of day, Run the Board is going to be out there. You can start picking games.
Can't wait.
You can start picking games for Week 1.
Give me that.
It starts Week 1.
Week 1.
All right. Why don't we dive in, Dan? Are you ready?
Always ready. Born ready.
We have some breaking news. Boop, 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 boop. quarterback announcements in and around the world of college football. There have been a bunch of big ones that have dropped, but perhaps none bigger than the one that dropped yesterday, courtesy of Marcus Freeman. CJ Carr has officially now won the job over Kenny Minchey. Came as a bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest.
Really?
If you followed any of the public reporting over the last couple weeks, things very much seem to be trending in the direction of Minchey.
Interesting.
Now, if you had talked to me, if you had talked to anybody who covers the team more closely than you and I, there was an assumption out there that this was always going to be CJ Carr. From the moment CJ Carr stepped on campus, from the moment he signed on that dotted line,
multiple dotted lines, right? That there's a payment structure in place for CJ Carr, right?
From the moment that he signed however many lines, there was an assumption that this eventually was going to be his job, but it was much more of a race in fall camp than I think many expected.
Okay.
CJ Carr got the gig officially yesterday.
Redshirt freshman?
Redshirt freshman.
And as much as Notre Dame does or doesn't do redshirts, yeah.
Correct. So caught a lot of people off guard. Marcus Freeman did say as recently as this past Sunday that it was still neck and neck, but ultimately it was his decision to make. I'm sure he's going to be asked about this a million times over now. To what end we'll get his actual thought process. Clearly that remains to be seen. Who knows on that front? I can only speculate here because, again, I'm not at practice. I'm here in my basement in our studio. So forgive me for speaking out as a fan, but I would say truly if this were a neck and neck race, even if Kenny Minchey did at some point or another pull ahead, the fact that they still went with CJ Carr tells us two really big things.
Tell me.
About Notre Dame this year. The first, I think, and this may be obvious, it screams to me that the coaching staff thinks CJ Carr is the higher ceiling. Why else would you give it to somebody who maybe doesn't have the edge? It's because you think he's got more to give in the long run.
Right.
He's a year younger than Kenny Minchey. He can develop
into something, and this time will allow him to do so. Yeah.
A year younger than Kenny Minchey, so it's a bit of a longer-term play. Plus, you know as well as I, in the portal era, Dan, you got to have that mentality that you're going to lose one of these guys to the portal. It seems clear they want to hold on to CJ Carr. That's what I'm getting out of this.
Right.
And then secondly, and I think more encouraging for those of us who cheer on the Irish, Marcus Freeman must have enough confidence in the rest of the team, in the rest of the offense, that he let this drag on for as long as it did.
Right.
This was truly like his first quarterback race of this magnitude. And I think he was content to let it drag on, to let these two duke it out for as long as they did, because frankly, there's less of a risk when you've got a beast of an offensive line and what might be one of the best two ground games in the entire country with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. So we'll have to wait and see what it looks like against Miami in week one, that Sunday of week one. I think ultimately both guys probably end up being very good college quarterbacks, whether it's at Notre Dame or somewhere else. But the decision has been made. It did surprise a lot of people. Maybe we're right back to where the conversation started at the end of last year. Who knows? But it's going to be CJ Carr when the Irish take the field in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, look, in any of these quarterback races and selections and naming of starters situations that we're talking about, if there is a true legit competition, if it is neck and neck, generally speaking, if you're just playing the odds, if you're just doing a little bit of math, and I'm not the best person to be talking about doing math, generally speaking, you either have two pretty good quarterbacks and you're trying to figure out who has the best chance of being excellent, or you have two like pretty average or below average quarterbacks and you're figuring out who is the less below average quarterback, right? Who has the higher floor. From what we've seen of these two quarterbacks, it seems that they're probably both pretty good. And just to echo what you're saying, and not two excellent quarterbacks who are of Heisman caliber. And like, what a crazy decision we have to make. What a luxurious, crazy situation we find ourselves in. That they're both pretty good. And it seemed that CJ Carr, because of the year he's in his second season as opposed to Kenny Minchey in his third, or because of the best of his throws or the best of his plays, seems to have a higher ceiling. So that would be where my money is for any of these quarterback battles. Especially at the high-profile places, if they're legit back and forth, right? Sometimes they're quote-unquote quarterback battles, but it's one guy all along. But if this one is indeed legit, then that would be where my money is. That both of these guys are at least pretty good, but CJ Carr has that ceiling. So,
and honestly, I'm not discouraged by the fact that there was a true quarterback competition.
No, that's fine.
Especially given the fact that, as you said, both seem to be pretty good. Both will end up being good college quarterbacks, again, whether it's at Notre Dame or somewhere else. The real surprise to me was that it was a real bona fide race.
Yeah.
Because I was under the assumption that it was always just going to be CJ Carr. They were going to hand it over to him. But by all accounts, Kenny Minchey pushed him pretty good. Who knows how this goes through the first month of the season? It could still be Kenny Minchey's to gain, depending how CJ Carr shows out here in the first few weeks of the season. But our long national nightmare is over if you are a Notre Dame fan.
Who else do you have in terms of the quarterback battles and starters named that get your antennae bubbling?
Julian Sayin, Dan.
Yeah.
Know who that is?
Of course.
Julian Sayin, the former 5-star who initially committed to Alabama, then transferred up to Ohio State after the Saban news. He beat out Lincoln Kienholz at Ohio State. He's going to be the guy. I am excited to play my Super Saiyan sound all season long.
Thank you.
Julian Sayin going to be the guy. Speaking of Alabama, Ty Simpson. This one came out, I think, a little bit before most of these names that I'm about to read off. But, of course, the former backup to Jalen Milroe won the job, has been in the system now for 2 years. He edged out Austin Mack and Keelan Russell. If you go back and listen to our SEC preview, I think it still applies that regardless of who they picked here, much like the Notre Dame situation, actually, they have plenty of good options in that quarterback room. They're going to be fine whether it's Simpson or whether or not they end up going to somebody else down the road.
Right. No, there's all sorts of calculus, and as you mentioned, of knowing that guys are going to leave. Ty Simpson seems to be the guy for Alabama, reading the tea leaves, that checks the most boxes, that's most ready to win now. Keelan Russell is likely the future after what his talent level is perceived to be. But to come in with how well built Alabama is for a run in the SEC, to hand it over to a true freshman, you better be awfully sure in that true freshman. And when you look at all the quotes along the way, it was like these guys each offer us different interesting things. So it's pretty clear that Ty Simpson checks the most boxes.
Joey Aguilar, it's not a surprise that he would get the gig at Tennessee. He was part of that transfer trade. Recall, Nico leaves. Yeah. Joey Aguilar comes from UCLA to Knoxville. He beat out Jake Merklinger. Bill Connolly had an
country legend
quote.
George McIntyre. Continue.
And country legend George McIntyre. Thank you. Bill Connolly on the last episode, the interview that you did with him, had some thoughts on this insofar as maybe Aguilar could be even better than what we saw at Nico last year. There's been an assumption that he wouldn't or that he couldn't, but Bill feels a little bit differently.
The bar wasn't terribly high.
Yeah.
In terms of actual production against quality teams, Tennessee had a lot left to be desired on offense. Sure.
Bear Bachmeier. Great name, great head of hair.
Stanford transfer,
getting the nod at BYU. So he's going to wear number 47, which is different. He's going to be the first true freshman to start an opener for BYU, which is also different. And he's one of the Bachmeier dynasty. Still in college football. They're like the new O'Rourke's. Or Rourke's.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yes.
Steve Angeli gets the gig at Syracuse. Dylan Lonergan gets the job at Boston College. Ben Gulbranson. I can't even say it. I've had 6 years to get this down. I still screw it up. Ben Gulbranson beat out Elijah Brown at Stanford. The former blue chipper was their highest rated prospect in 2024. But Ben, I'm just going to call him Big Ben, he gets the gig. And Jaron Keave Songapulatelli, Dan.
Nailed it. Look at you.
I wrote it down phonetically here on the sheet, so I didn't screw it.
Yes.
He gets the gig at Cal.
Yeah, was at Oregon for an hour and a half in December. Yeah.
Yes, was at Oregon for a hot minute, transferred back down to Berkeley. He won the job over the Ohio State transfer, Devin Brown.
Maybe a tough year in Berkeley for him, but you get that year of experience, and we'll see where that leads him.
Just some other really quick ones for the G5 fans among us. Brendan Lewis gets the gig at Memphis. He came over from Nevada. He's going to replace Seth Hennigan, who was there forever. At Fresno, it's E.J. Warner.
Yeah.
Talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the Fresno-Kansas game. Kurt Warner's son, his third team in 4 years, for those keeping track. Drew Mestamaker is going to be the guy at North Texas. Interesting tidbit on Drew Mestamaker. Until the bowl game last year, he hadn't started a game at quarterback since the 9th grade.
Wow. Ready to roll. He's well rested, Ty.
Well rested.
Yeah.
Jack Lane at New Mexico, Chase Jenkins at Rice, Brandon Rose, the former Utah backup, getting the gig at UMass. And Dexter Williams. Remember Dexter Williams from Indiana?
Yeah, sure.
Had a brief stint at Georgia Southern. Now he's going to be the starter at Kennesaw State.
Great. Good luck to all.
Good luck to all. A couple bits of injury news as well to report. Jam Miller, presumed the starting running back at Alabama, had a collarbone injury during one of their preseason scrimmages. It seems as if they're going to get him back in time for that September 27th game against Georgia.
Yeah, that's collarbone. If it is like a fractured collarbone, that's like 4 to 6 usually, I believe.
He had some surgery on it, and I haven't seen an official timetable on his return, but at least some optimism out there that he could be back for that Georgia game.
Could you imagine, by the way, quick little sidebar, could you imagine somehow like fracturing or breaking or cracking your collarbone, healing up, and then somebody telling you, all right, now that you're better, go right into the Georgia defensive.
Go play Georgia.
Good luck out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
I would need a suit of armor before I'd be willing to do that, but okay, whatever.
Continue. He's built different.
Quentin Joyner at Texas Tech. This one's a tough one, man. Quentin Joyner came over from USC at the start of the year, done now with a torn ACL.
Oh, brutal.
Which is a bummer for him because it was a good situation he was stepping into. And an even bigger bummer now for Texas Tech, who's going to have to rely on 2 sophomores, Cameron Dickey, Jacoby Williams, both of whom played a bit last year. Thereabouts 5 yards a carry and some limited action.
Right. It was a Taj Brooks backfield yesterday. The entire
but it was Taj
plane.
Brooks.
Yeah.
So one of these dudes is going to have to step up now. Other injury news out there, just notable names that I think the Verballerhood would be interested in. Chris Brazzell, the wide receiver for Tennessee, didn't play in the most recent scrimmage, still not ready to go. I haven't seen a whole lot as to what exactly is going on there, but Brazzell's a name that I would hope would step up out wide for Joey Aguilar in that Tennessee offense. Michael Van Buren, your backup at LSU, did something to his throwing hand. He was wearing a splint around earlier in the week. Dallin Hayden, as well as the entirety of the Colorado offensive line, appears to be banged up.
Okay.
Dallin Hayden's got a hand injury. He's going to miss the start of the year. The offensive line, Dion was very vague about what's going on with the offensive line. He didn't list any names, but he just said, we're all banged up. We're all banged up. So there's that.
He has talked about that they would be going about things differently on offense in terms of where their focus was, because it obviously hasn't been on running the ball these past couple of years. So he alluded to a shift in focus on offense. I don't know if it's more balanced. I don't know if it's more run heavy or extremely run heavy, or just looking at different ways that Colorado can operate. Continue.
It would be problematic if the line were nicked up.
Correct. You can say that about literally any team.
You can say that literally about any team, but Colorado especially, because I do think they need to bring things a little bit more into balance.
Yes, got better last year.
Otherwise, look, I mean, there have been injury concerns about DJ Lagway. He was dealing with a leg thing. He's back to full health. Diego Pavia's got some calf tightness, but it sounds like he's going to be fine. Florida State's still waiting on Squirrel White, their transfer that they bring down from Tennessee. He's been limited in practice, but he should be good for the Alabama game when they open things up. So not a whole lot here, a couple catastrophic ones to report, but otherwise, most of the big names seem like they're good to go, man.
Great.
Seems like it's going to be all right.
I would treasure somebody taking that much interest in me physically every day, saying, got any stuff today? Be like, I got kind of a hamstring thing. There's something elbow-wise that I'm like, I would love a daily report on how I'm holding up in the way that we have to the offensive line for Colorado is a little bit nicked up. I would love that kind of attention, but maybe that says more about me. Continue.
Dan, can you give me that computer sound that you have
right here
on your soundboard? Thank you. So the College Football Playoff Committee dropped some news shortly before we hit record here today.
Yeah.
It is no secret to this crowd anyway that the strength of schedule argument rears its ugly head every November. Even before we had the 12-team format, back when it was a 4-team format, even back when we had the computers picking who the top two were.
Sure.
The schedule, the strength of schedule argument is like as old as time itself.
You can even call it the Sank of schedule argument because it's Greg Sank. Like we might as well name that discussion point after him. Like he can be like a title sponsor. Anytime you mention strength of schedule in this sport,
sponsored by Greg Sankey.
It's sort of like the when you look at Texas's Greg Sankey presents strength of schedule. Continue.
So the College Football Playoff Committee is going to be rolling out what they're calling, quote, enhanced metrics, Dan.
Love that. Whatever that is.
They're going to be including something called record strength now in their mix of stats that they look at.
Mm-hmm.
Basically a fancy way of saying that they're going to give you a little bit more credit for beating the good teams. They're not going to hammer you as hard if you're losing to the better teams on your schedule. Whereas if you're playing a weaker schedule, you're losing to worse teams, that might reflect on you a little bit differently. So it gives you a bit of a safety net.
Right.
If you're playing a tougher schedule. Clearly, the strength of schedule arguments will not go away anytime soon because bear in mind, this is still a process that relies on a committee of people to subjectively, again, very subjectively.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Pick a field of 12. The argument's not going away, but if we're to believe these reports, they're going to put a little bit more emphasis on the teams that play the hardest schedules.
Sure.
For whatever that's worth to you, it's still very vague. Good thing, bad thing, indifferent, Dan Rubenstein.
So, I mean, it's the same question that we can ask every year, right? It's a hard schedule according to whom? It's an easy schedule according to whom? What makes for an easy schedule? These teams? Are these teams bad, good, average? According to whom? Which objective metrics are you using? Whose objective metrics are you using? And then even though the numbers are objective, the person or people or collection of people deciding on what is weighted more than what isn't weighted in that, equation, whatever you want to call it. Why? According to whom? Like what is it about that equation that gives us a more accurate read on Tennessee's quality or Texas's quality or, Minnesota's quality? And so somewhere along the way, there is somebody looking at the Greg Sankey presents strength of schedule metric and saying to themselves, I think Auburn's the team that blah, 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 blah. I think NC State actually is a quality win or a quality loss. Like, eventually you're just going to get to a subjective point the further you dig. And that's fine. We only have 12 games to figure it out. And we're going to try to figure out 7, 8, 9 games in anyway to give out rankings for everybody to look at. But to sort of say we're using an objective method to figure out strength of schedule and how to rank these teams, I don't think that really exists. And so just tell us, is it Bill Connolly? Is it Brian Fremo? Is it Ty Hildenbrand? Whose strength of schedule metric should we be looking at, and how much transparency can we get in that process?
Yeah, this Google sheet is owned by an SEC@gmail.com address.
Sure. Because, the SEC, money-wise, they're not springing for the full custom URL. They're saving. Get us a Gmail address. Yeah.
And all of these SEC teams, the cells don't have formulas. It's almost as if this number's been manually inputted.
Manually inputted, correct. Yeah, that's what the Greg Sankey presents strength of schedule is ultimately going to be.
It's all very vague.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what it looks like in practice. Two obvious questions for me, though. One, on the topic of Sankey, does it give him enough cover to switch things up to a 9-game conference slate now? Because this has been his thing.
Right.
He's been beating this drum for a long time, and there was this whole back and forth about the playoff system, and if they get the AQs, if they don't get the AQs, that could influence them one way or another here with the conference slate. So if this is something, I guess in the short term, that seems to benefit the SEC, I could see them making the switch, but that's just me talking from afar. The second thing I'm interested in the degree to which this could affect things short term for teams like Indiana and even some of the G5 schools.
Sure.
That now have a stake in this playoff. Like, I looked at Indiana's non-conference slate out at fbsschedules.com, sort of one of the many Bibles that we check this time of year.
Sure.
They don't have a meaningful non-conference game until 2029 against Notre Dame.
Right, because it's the intention of where that program was when they were booking these schedules. Or sometimes, in a lot of cases, there are canceled matchups. I don't know if or if not Indiana had a home-and-home booked with Florida. Probably not, considering it's Florida. But those things get canceled sometimes. And then you're playing, take your pick, smaller school. You're playing Furman instead. And your schedule doesn't look quite as impressive. So, all due respect to what are the Paladins, Ty?
Yes.
Yes. If your intention is let's figure out how we can most quickly get to 6 or 7 wins, great. And now that Indiana is capital A actually good, now that schedule is not doing them any favors.
Right. So, how quickly can you change that type of thing? That's above my pay grade, but it looks like it's going to be a minute before Indiana has a meaningful non-conference opponent. Like I said, 2029 right now, it's Notre Dame. And the other side of this is that G5 slot that we've got right now in these playoffs. Like, I was thinking about this. Liberty is probably a good example, right? Liberty plays the easiest schedule in the country this year. We talked about it on the Conference USA preview.
Right.
That's in large part because of the conference slate. Is there some way that they can rejigger the schedule so that it's more attractive to the committee, or do they have to actually leave the conference to get that tougher slate so they can fashion themselves truly as a playoff contender? I don't know what that calculus looks like on the G5 level, but I could imagine a world in which this could really affect some of those teams, not necessarily getting in over in Alabama, but just getting in over a Boise State.
Right, if they're 11-1 and Boise's 10-2. I think it's going to be near impossible for the Conference USA champion to get to the playoff at any point less than being undefeated and being compared against a 10-2 team. Conference USA is just not built in terms of quality like the Sun Belt, like the American, like the Mountain West. It's just going to be difficult.
It is. It absolutely is. So much more to come on this front, but in the interim, get ready for some quote-unquote enhanced metric standards.
Oh, and by the way, we got Pac-12 coming up soon, right? The newly formed version of the quote-unquote Pac-12. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. You want to pick some games?
I would love to.
Dan, Ty, help. I need picks of the week.
We got 5 of them, Dan. You have bowed out of giving this weekend a name.
Yeah, it's just football.
It's just
this
football
week is just football.
The big one is at high noon Eastern time on ESPN. It is Iowa State. It is Kansas State. It is Farmageddon. Again, they played at Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Can you give me your Irish Dublin one more time, please?
Dublin? Yeah. I have no idea if that's accurate. Continue.
We were invited to this game.
We were invited. I was tempted because Ireland and Northern Ireland are beautiful countries, a beautiful island. I loved visiting a couple years ago. Had a great time eating in Dublin. Great walkable European city. It was Bambino. Loved Bambino pizza. Come on.
You talk about Bambino pizza now.
I've got
for
a
like
sticker
a year.
on my water bottle right here. Bambino. Look at that little baby eating pizza. I also had a good meal at Grano. Really good homemade pasta. Continue.
Wonderful. Well, we're not able to make it. We appreciate the invite. The good news, though, is that Frosted Wild Berry and Frosted Hot Fudge Sundae will be there rooting on Iowa State.
Good.
They won the Pop-Tarts Bowl, so there's gotta keep the rep, you know?
That's true.
Kansas State's favored by 3 points in this matchup. You know I'm high on both these schools.
Yeah.
I've got them playing an eventual rematch in the Big 12 title game. And I've also telegraphed where I stand on this game in that I'm locking up K-State -3.
Lock of the week.
So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I found interesting in looking at these schools, especially now that they are matched up against each other in the first game of the college football season. To a degree, both of these schools fit your very specific Dan Rubenstein rubric
Of?
having a good quarterback,
Yeah.
having a good defense.
Yeah. Likely.
If that's your starting point, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what say you about that setup, that both schools have something that I know you always like?
Mm-hmm.
Being so, it's this early in the season in a foreign country, different stadium. Where you at?
I mean, it's a fascinating matchup. A lot of it is just potential or promising, like a promising defense and a promising quarterback. The best of Avery Johnson is quite promising. When Kansas State loses, it seems that it's Avery Johnson in the passing game or weird fumbles that aid in that loss. And so it's Kansas State with a new look offensive line with transfers, but really fun looking skill players. It's Iowa State with a new look defensive line, but much healthier at linebacker. So it's like Kansas State wants to get better on offense. Iowa State wants to get better at defense. Iowa State's looking to find new receivers. Kansas State's looking to stop big pass plays. There's a lot of like, hey, we struggled doing this thing last year and it led to not so fun moments. We hope starting the year with a rivalry game will immediately have our teams and transfers that are coming in to solve these issues focused on fixing those things. And so it's hard to really feel anything strongly. We haven't seen these versions of teams. There's new personnel everywhere for both of these teams. I can say this. If you are a believer to whatever extent in trends, Iowa State in September is not super good. Iowa State, for whatever reason, under Matt Campbell, has started very slowly. Needed triple overtime to beat Northern Iowa, or loses to Northern Iowa, or scores 7.5 points a year against Iowa. Sometimes it's good enough to beat the Iowa offense. That's fine. But there is something about losing to Ohio and Matt Campbell having a little bit of a moment, we'll call it, generously. Had a moment. We've all been there. Lest I can consider Matt Campbell a lesser person. I've had that moment 3 times this morning, Ty. I have a 6-year-old and 4-year-old. So I kind of like going against Iowa State. I kind of like that Kansas State has been a little bit more solid in the early going these past few years under Chris Kleiman. I kind of love the under if that's the kind of person you are. Iowa State does not hit overs as a dog. Kansas State does not hit overs as a favorite. So this game is being played 44,000 miles away. Don't fact check me. I kind of like a low-scoring Kansas State cover of 23-17 in that range. How does that strike you?
I got it in the same range.
Okay.
I think I'd be inclined to go under. I never bet unders because that's just no fun.
It definitely is no fun.
It's no fun to do that. If you're that kind of person, you're kind of a monster.
Right. Last year's
nice
Georgia
monster.
Tech, Florida State was 24-21.
Yeah.
So that's under 50. That's right around where that number is this year.
Yeah, maybe a nice monster, just not.
Yeah, I agree.
Not my type of better. You can still listen to the show. You can still come to the live shows whenever we do them, but just not my cup of tea.
Okay.
Here's the thing for me. The passing game. I talked about this in all the preview stuff that we did on the Big 12, radio shows that I did talking about the Big 12 teams.
Jeez, brag much? Continue.
My question on both sides is the passing game. On the K-State side, I think it's one more of consistency with Avery Johnson. On the Iowa State side, it's because they lost 2 1,100-yard receivers. I like Rocco Beck, the best of all Roccos, the Boar, if you will.
Of course.
But that's a lot to lose out wide. And I think it hurts Iowa State more because if they don't have the pop in the passing game this year, and if their running game does not get more explosive than it was a year ago, this turns into a pickleball offense in a hurry.
Yeah.
In a hurry. Meanwhile, if you're K-State, Dan, and you can't get it going, it basically turns into an improv show. Like Matt Wells is just going to hand it off to his athletes. He's going to let Avery Johnson dance around in the backfield and figure something out.
Right.
Let your playmakers figure it out. I like the Clones a lot, but they're going to need some dudes to step up and become those type of dynamic playmakers to give this offense a little bit more pop out wide. And that's sort of the big hang up with Iowa State this year, at least on offense. There's a lot of veteran presence there. I love the quarterback. I still like the backfield. I'd like to see more chunk plays. But what is that passing game going to look like? That to me is one of two big concerns in this game for Iowa State. And the second thing, I guess, is like a build on that is how does K-State use Avery Johnson to test that Iowa State secondary? You know, like you generally trust that John Haycock's going to figure out defense. You know, he's been doing it for a long time. He's very good at it.
It was a struggle last year, but that was a lot of injury-related issues.
A lot of injury stuff, sure. Generally, you can trust the guy.
Yep.
Secondary this year, though, is the big question. And we know from watching this game our entire lives what a good dual threat quarterback can do to a defense, especially a secondary.
Yep.
How it can pull defenses apart, get them out of shape, cause communication issues, things like that. Avery Johnson is that kind of guy. And so I'm curious to see how they utilize his legs, how they do it early, and if they're able to take advantage of that to open up some passing lanes down the field against a secondary that, at least to start, is relatively unproven.
Yes. It was actually a really good secondary last year. That was not the weakness of this defense. This team was 10th in the nation. Again, this team or this program, it's a different team this year, both sides of the ball. But in terms of what John Haycock does, putting his players in a position to succeed, they were top 10 nationally in interception percentage. So
yeah,
it's worthwhile.
Yeah, again, he will figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm confident in that. But early against a good dual threat guy like Avery Johnson, I think it's going to hinge on a couple big plays down the field that are set up mainly because of the threat of him running.
Yeah.
So for me, I also have this under a little bit less under, I guess, than you do. I've got it at 27-20 K-State in a really good game. Like, this is an awesome game to bring to the Irish people. Like, I love the fact that they're playing Farmageddon there. For as much as I'm in favor of playing all games on campus all the time, if you're going to take a game abroad, this one's
really go
fun
for
one.
it, right?
Yeah, this one's a pretty fun one.
The Air Lingus College Football Classic? We love a good Lingus. Ty,
Not a
continue.
sponsor.
No, but could be.
Could be. Absolutely could be. So we're both on K-State here. I'm locking them up minus the 3.
I agree. For your consideration on any podcast player, search Solid Verbal, find us, and hit follow or subscribe. It's just that easy.
Some other action. Also at noon, we get to see UNLV for the first time under Dan Mullen.
Both quarterbacks will play against Idaho State. As that's the most recent thing I saw. Alex Orji, Anthony Calandria. Yeah.
All right. UNLV is going to win the game. I'm curious to see what they look like under Dan Mullen. I'm curious to see what the quarterback situation is and how that evolves. There has not been an official announcement, to your point, about who QB1 is or will be. There's been a lot of chatter among the people that cover UNLV that it could be Alex Orji is a better fit for the Dan Mullen system.
Sure.
I still think Alex Orji is a better fit for wide receiver than he is for quarterback, but however they want to play this, it's on them. I'm curious to see how he looks in the Mullen system, if it does benefit his skill set a little bit more. I've always been a Calandria guy. You know, I just got to think for Anthony Calandria.
I watched a game and a half of Anthony Calandria in 2022,
No,
and he's
that's
like,
not
you know what?
true.
I am in love.
That's not true.
I know.
That is not true, and you know it.
Continue.
But UNLV will be in action. 4:00 on Fox, we've got Fresno State at Kansas. Kansas is reopening the booth, their stadium, which has been under renovation for a while now.
Yes.
I think they are going to smoke Fresno State in this game.
So they had their own issues early, and they've had their own issues early. That's in large part to the fact that Kansas was garbage before Lance Leipold fully weaponized this program. They really did struggle last year. And Fresno State had their own struggles last year, and it's different Fresno staff, a different Fresno roster, a lot new on the Kansas side as well. So this is much more, I think, about the fans and the scar tissue that fans have from watching these two teams last year. Is if this game is close, we're going to have two fan bases white-knuckling the end of this game.
It's true.
Because of last
really
year,
true.
what Fresno was not able to accomplish close, and especially in the first 5 or 6 weeks last year, be it against, you mentioned UNLV, be it against Illinois last year, West Virginia. Kansas had its own struggles in close fourth quarter matchups. I think Kansas is better positioned, but there is a ton new for me to feel super confident in. So I'm going to go Kansas. I'm not on a limb from limb situation yet, but
Oh,
I'm pretty
dude, they're
confident
gonna-
Kansas has this.
They're going to smoke
Okay.
Fresno in this game. The place is going to be hopping because of reopening the stadium. And we've talked before about how this was like the missing piece for Lance Leipold. It was one of the things that he advocated for upon taking that job and having some pretty quick success. They wanted this. Now they're reopening it. I think everybody's going to be hopping.
And they're unopposed in this window, right? This is 4 Eastern time.
They're unopposed.
So this is, they know this is the show that everybody's watching. Yeah.
This is the show. The place is going to be hopping. It's only week 0, which I believe means that Jalen Daniels isn't hurt yet.
Oh, stay healthy.
I hope he stays healthy. He's very exciting when he is.
Yeah.
He's just always hurt. He's not hurt yet, so that's good. And then I think the other layer to this is that it's a new regime at Fresno State with Matt Ince, who I like a lot. I actually really like that hire. He's got the defensive background. I think he's going to have a decent defense this year.
Hired the best tight ends coach in America. Let's not skip over that. Continue.
Brian Ferentz, yes, will be there. I just don't trust him on offense with E.J. Warner. Like, E.J. Warner is not Kurt Warner. He's not.
Hold on, let me write this down. Put it on the legal
please.
pad. E.J. Warner.
Put that
is
on the
not
legal pad.
Super Bowl quarterback, Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. Okay, continue.
Kansas minus 13 is the play for me. I think they're going to go limb
I don't
for
hate
limb
that.
here. 2 other games here that I want to mention quickly. 6:30, it is Sam Houston versus Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is one of my pet teams this year.
Okay.
One of my pet teams. Because what Tyson Helton is doing in running back his 2021 playbook. So instead of bringing over Bailey Zappi and his offensive coordinator, Zach Kitley from Houston Baptist, this year it's Rick Bowie, the offensive coordinator, and Maverick McIver.
Who was at Texas Tech
Abilene,
a few years ago. Yeah.
From Abilene Christian.
Yeah.
And the Maverick was super productive last season, almost beat Texas Tech last year. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. And also the Sam Houston story is pretty interesting because they lose their coach to Temple. Phil Longo comes down, going to change entirely the philosophy of the program, which last year defense first, this year he's going offense first, it seems. So you set something up like that, and what do you think happens? All your defensive guys leave.
Yeah, that'll happen.
He's basically replacing every starter on defense, which is just a hair worse than Western Kentucky, which loses like its top 12 tacklers or something like that. So possible shootout here. Over-under was like 60, 63, somewhere in that. I don't know. A lot of points are expected here. I like Western by about 14. They're favored by 10, so I'm on the Hilltoppers here at home.
Nice little sidebar here because you mentioned Sam Houston being fascinating. The actual Sam Houston is super fascinating. At the very least, go to the Sam Houston, like the guy Sam Houston from the 19th century, who was like one of the, if not the father of the state of Texas. Skim the Wikipedia page. Check out a book about Sam Houston from your local library. Dude on like 2 separate heartbreak occasions moved in with the Cherokee people near him. It's great. Sam Houston, fascinating life. I don't condone everything he did or thought, but super fascinating read about Sam Houston. Continue.
A big Wikipedia page.
It's a big time. Like if you were to have a Greg Sankey Presents Strength of Schedule Wikipedia entry rating system, Sam Houston's up there. It's a good read.
Okay.
Continue.
All right. Fair enough. Do you have a lean in this game?
I guess I'm going to go Western Kentucky. I think both of these teams, Western Kentucky was close and or performed well against some quality teams last year, and same goes for Sam Houston. The game is at WKU, correct?
Correct.
They played last year. I believe Western Kentucky won close relatively early on in the season. Western Kentucky should once again be able to exclusively pass and maybe not do anything else near that success rate, but I'm going Hilltoppers here.
And finally, 7 p.m. on CBS, it is Stanford traveling to the islands of Hawaii. Hawaii favored by 2.5 points here. So we've got the aforementioned Ben Gulbranson. I believe I got that name correct that time.
You're in the vicinity.
He is leading the charge for Stanford. I don't really know how you handicap this one, Dan, on the Stanford side anyway.
Right.
Because so much new, an interim coach, they are traveling a long ways to get to the islands to play this game. Meanwhile, I think Hawaii might be pretty decent this year. There's like a lot back on defense, more back on defense, I guess, than usual. I like their quarterback, Micah Alejado.
Okay.
Southpaw, smaller dude, threw for 469 and 5 touchdowns in the last game of the year last year against New Mexico. I think this is going to be a very, very competitive game and a fun one to watch at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I am going Hawaii. Lower scoring game, 27-20.
So
somewhere in that neighborhood.
Every year is different. Every team is different. Everything is its own individual thing. Hawaii playing at home last year. You've heard of quiet quitting, Ty. Quiet quality, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Quiet quality if they were playing on the West Coast, not terribly far from Hawaii, or in Hawaii, they were pretty good. There was quiet quality to them. You look at what they did against UCLA early. That was in LA. But when teams came to the islands, or one specific island, the UNLV, they were right there. Quality team that the defense improved. The defense was able to make plays. If the defense is anywhere near that this season and the quarterback play is okay, I think they're winning this game. Stanford is they've got a ways to go. I'm going Hawaii here.
There you have it. Those are your 5 games and a moose-boosh, as you like to say.
By the way, I mentioned UC Davis at the top. They're on big old regular ESPN at 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern. It's like the FCS Showdown Classic or something against Mercer. I think they're both in the top 15 or so. Davis is always going to have a soft spot in my heart. I've been to Davis a bunch. So, I don't know. That's an interesting window if the Kansas game is out of control like Ty anticipates. Check in on UC Davis. Check in on the Fighting Aggies, Ty.
Check in on the other Aggies. Why don't you?
Exactly.
We've got one final segment here today, Dan. It is time to reveal, at long last, the results of our Verballer Top 12 preseason poll.
Ooh.
So we invited those across the Verballerhood to come on over to our Patreon, verballers.com, sign up to vote for free. Entirely free to vote in the poll, preseason poll anyway. I've been very quietly collecting the results of it. Everybody out there has already released the results of their preseason poll. This one, the most important one, is going to be released last, if you are ready for it.
I'm always ready. The game's at Mercer, by the way, should be clear.
At Mercer, of course.
Yeah. Continue.
Here's your Verballer Top 12 to start off the 2025 college football season. Number 1, Texas Longhorns.
All right. Makes sense.
Number 2, Penn State Nittany Lions. Number 3, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Not a whole lot of separation between those top 3 teams.
Okay.
Very neck and neck.
When you think
Very
about
easily
college
could have
football,
gone
you
one
think
way or the
about
other.
Penn State being slightly ahead of Ohio State. So I get where everybody's coming from there. Continue.
Number 4, my America's Clemson Tigers.
Okay.
Bit of a distant 4th. Not quite close enough to really challenge for 3rd over Ohio State.
And we're thinking Clemson with huge preseason expectations.
Huge.
Interesting.
Preseason
I
expectations.
assume it's going to go well. Continue.
And definitely a bit of padding between them and the 5th place team, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Okay.
So this is interesting because Georgia by a nose over Alabama, who came in 6th in our poll.
Okay.
This is about as low as I've seen Alabama in most of the polls, frankly. But Alabama came in 6th. Not a lot of separation between 6, 7, and 8, which is Alabama at 6, Notre Dame at 7, your Oregon Ducks at number 8.
Okay.
To round out the top 10, we've got LSU at 9, Miami at 10, Arizona State at 11, and Michigan, the Wolverines, all the way up to 12 in this poll, which feels aggressive. But nonetheless, there's a lot to like about the Michigan Wolverines this year. So that's your top 12. By the way, the first 5 out, that is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Florida Gators were 13th. Texas A&M was 14th. Illinois, Kansas State, and South Carolina. Those are the next 5 in that order.
Man.
What are your reactions to this, Dan?
Any poll that does not include Mizzou in the top 3 is a fraudulent poll, Ty. Look, my reaction to this is the same as it is to the AP and coaches poll, more broadly speaking, that there's so many new quarterbacks and so many enormous questions and so much roster upheaval for the most part in the top 12 or top 17 that we can confidently say that we're going to look back on this poll through tears of laughter. And I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't argue against anybody specific. Like, I'm pretty high on Michigan. I just don't believe them to be like a conversational team in this moment. I'm pretty high on a number of these teams, but like when you see the number next to them, they're like, oh man, that's pretty up there. By the way, did we talk about Michigan being punished?
We did not talk about Michigan being punished. We can talk about that at the very end here.
Okay.
That is also very important news.
Yeah.
Dan. But Michigan not punished in this poll. Michigan all the way up at 12. That to me is what jumped out the most, I think. I had Clemson number 1 in mind. You know where I stand on Clemson.
Yeah.
I'm all in on Clemson this year. I had Alabama 2. I really like Alabama this season. Then I had Penn State. Then I had Ohio State. Then I had Texas in that order. Then Georgia to kind of round out the, opening batch of teams.
Yeah.
These polls are largely useless, but it is an interesting exercise to see how people feel about these teams after our previews. I like the fact that we're giving the Verballers a voice now in the preseason. Typically, we only do this during the season. By the way, if you sign up at verballers.com, you can vote in this poll all season long if you're a premium or a certified tier Verballer. This will change a million times over, but we got a great turnout. I appreciate the Verballerhood stopping by, casting their votes, making their opinions heard. I saw a bunch of screenshots out there on the internet, people talking through their logic for putting which teams where. So clearly a million different schools of thought for how to go about conducting yourself here with this poll. Got some interesting schools getting votes, let's say.
Yeah.
A couple Missouri states in there just for the hell of it. But by and large, I think what we saw here mostly tracks with what we've seen elsewhere. A pretty good sense for who the top teams are, at least at the start of the season, at least based on the assumptions that we have after doing our previews.
Correct. No, I can't wait to see how the poll evolves over time. And just like we had last year with Arizona State late, I think it's the 800 meters that, you got to pace yourself and then you come on strong at the end, your final kick. That's what I'm get excited for. Who's that November kick that all of a sudden hasn't been in that poll for 2 months and enters at number 6? Right? Just like a team that's just like, yeah, we're here. This is it. This is who we are. We're top 6 team. We're top 2 team. Let's roll. I love that.
By the way, verballers.com again, not to do too many promos here in this episode, but you can vote in this poll all season long if you support what Dan and I do.
Yes.
You can also get access to ad-free episodes, bonus content, our Discord server, the game Run the Board that I mentioned at the very top of the episode, which is now live, living color. It is excited. It is ready for you to file your projections, your picks, and compete for an opportunity to win not only our week 1 prize, which we'll unveil next week, but also the season-long race to be part of our board of trustees.
Yes.
That's at verballers.com. Every little bit helps.
We need you.
You and I keep
we love
the light
that
on.
support.
Absolutely. All right, you teased it out.
Yeah.
We've saved the best for last. And here is the reason that I'm doing this, okay? I am still very sensitive to something that I said after Michigan won the national championship.
Okay.
In the immediate aftermath of Michigan winning that national championship game a couple years back over Washington, we got 11 minutes into the episode. 11 minutes. I went back. I checked this morning just to make sure that I was right. 11 minutes into that episode before I brought up all of this with Michigan.
Okay.
And at the time, my comment was, hey, we don't know what the NCAA is going to say about all this.
It's not unreasonable.
I'm not much for vacating wins, but at least at that point in time, there were a lot of people sending in thoughts about that.
Mm-hmm.
That this isn't going to count in a couple years when they lower the boom on Michigan in response to the sign stealing thing, whatever Connor Stallions did. At the time, we didn't know as much as we do now. A lot of Michigan fans took exception to that.
Sure.
I didn't want to lead the show with that news because at this point, we're recording several days after it's all been released, about a week after. So now we have some actual notice from the NCAA. What does this amount to? It's a big fine, some probation, some show causes that have been thrown about, Dan. But ultimately, Michigan gets to keep its national championship.
Right.
Ultimately, Michigan might have something of a reduction in on-campus visits and some things here and there, but I don't think the NCAA really, quote-unquote, lowered the boom on Michigan the way that
I think the
many
boom
out
days
there-
are over, Ty.
the way that many out there would have hoped.
Sure.
So Michigan's going to be just fine. Michigan, as I said a few moments ago, is 12th in this preseason poll. What was your reaction to the news that Michigan was being punished, or in some cases not being punished by the NCAA?
Not much reaction. So we've had punishments previously with Jim Harbaugh sitting out games, and obviously coaches leaving, or obviously the big employee in Connor Stallions. Look, the information that came out is not like the most damning ever, and part of that is because a lot of evidence and obstruction was involved. A lot of evidence was destroyed, I think, at the bottom of a pond or multiple ponds, which is where phones ended up.
Sure.
I think this is a two things being true situation. One, Michigan won a national championship, right? Michigan did. They won a national championship. They won a bunch of games. Also, by the letter of the NCAA's law, to whatever extent you care or put weight in that or zero weight in the NCAA's rule of law, Michigan was a big-time cheating program, right? For a stretch of time, Michigan was a big-time cheating program per the NCAA. You might not think it. I might not think it. But in the eyes of the NCAA, the only real governing body we have, for better or for much, much worse.
In very tenuous air quotes, yes.
Michigan was a big old cheating program. And I assume Michigan people are okay with it. I assume a lot of college football people are okay with it. But, we shouldn't fully ignore that reality, right?
Sure.
And look, they've paid for it. They've had coaches do their time. They will have Jim Harbaugh never, ever coach that team again, but he delivered a championship. There are show causes. Head coach is going to miss another game. I think not this year, but next year. He's missing, games 3 and 4 this year?
Yep.
So they're being punished like a program that is a big-time cheating program in the eyes of the NCAA is being punished. Not in the same way that they used to by, forfeiting games or, removing Heismans, anything like that, or other trophies. And I guess to the NCAA's credit that they're saying that they're not going to punish future players and current players for the crimes of past people that were in charge.
Okay.
So that's good because that makes sense.
That shows growth, I think, absolutely.
But it also sort of shines a brighter light on how much the NCAA just completely trashed teams like Ohio State and USC and Miami, schools like that. So I don't think you should feel better if you're a fan of one of those teams. So here we are. At least I guess we have some closure. So there's that.
There is
but
that.
that's what I thought about. I was like, it was not a report of oh man, that was all overblown. That's on us, guys. That was not the report that came from the NCAA. I don't think people are going to think about this for a second moving forward. But yeah, that was our conclusion as a college football society.
I was curious to see what the NCAA was going to do, not because I expected anything too salacious, but because in this era of college football, it seemed like this was maybe their last best chance to exert something of real hard compliance, right? The NCAA has definitely been minimized in this new era of college football. Frankly, it has been afraid to go out after really anybody or anything for fear of lawsuits. It just isn't created the same way as it used to be. It's a different ecosystem nowadays. And so this I saw as maybe its last best chance to show that it still has some muscle in this whole conversation.
Right.
We can debate whether or not it was enough of a punishment that was handed down. I saw plenty of Ohio State people online saying, it wasn't enough. It was
Sure.
That debate is going to be, I think, raging for years to come. That's not going to be a new thing. It certainly hasn't been new for the last couple of years. So it's very much status quo on that front.
Do you think people in what year is this? 2025, 2033, 2039, when there are, hold on, not Michigan people. Do you think when somebody brings up Jim Harbaugh and they're all like the 49ers and the Chargers, they won all those Super Bowls with Justin Herbert. Hooray. Do you think when they get to that Michigan part of the conversation and they're saying, yeah, they finally broke through, had a real tough time getting to that level, but they won that national championship in 2020, whatever. It was the 2023 season, right? Do you think there will be the comma, and there was that wild Connor Stallions and institutional spying thing involved in that whole run?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't.
I think it depends on the fan base discussing it amongst themselves.
It depends on the fan base.
I think Michigan State fans, Ohio State fans, Penn State fans, I think it will. Somebody will be like, so skip to detail about that run of Michigan teams. Yeah.
The problem that I have with that school of thought is I'm not all that worked up about this.
No,
I'm not, and I haven't really ever been, contrary to popular
No,
belief.
that's not true. You've been worked up in a good way about all the very specific details of the story. I've gotten so many texts and messages from you like, can't get enough.
Well, and look, sign stealing is a dark art.
Of course.
That exists in all of sports.
In person against the rules, sign stealing. Yeah. Advanced scouting in person. Yeah.
It is some iteration of this is present across the board in sports. I don't care what sport it is. So I always had a hard time getting too worked up over this. Whether or not it's against the rules, that's probably a separate conversation. But for me, it never really moved the needle all that much. It was still a good team. We saw that team with our own eyes. They won games even after this was common knowledge that it was going on. Did it help? Did it hurt? I don't know. Okay,
I don't think it can hurt, but yeah.
I don't think it can hurt. But the degree to which it helped, that, we can debate that until the end of time.
Sure.
Frankly, I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad we can move past this now, and we can talk about the 2025 season, and we don't have to sit here and worry about what's going to happen in Michigan. It always felt to me like it was going to end up like this. The more time that passed between the initial bombshells that broke and where we are now, it just seemed almost a certainty that they weren't going to dismantle the program. They weren't going to go out on a limb. They weren't going to. Just seems like this was always going to be a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And look, Ty, we've all also moved on to the fact that this is a Tiger state now. Best team in the American League at time of recording, Jason Benetti calling those games for the Detroit Tigers. That's all.
There it is, baby.
Yeah.
All right. Week 0 is upon us, Dan Rubenstein. Wherever it is you are out in the Verballerhood, enjoy this first weekend of games. Hope you all have a chance to plop yourselves in front of a TV, watch some of the action. Again, it kicks off at noon Eastern time from Ireland. It is Farmageddon. It is Iowa State. It is Kansas State. You know where to find us online. We'll be online watching these games with all y'all. Follow us across social media. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if that's your thing. Of course, follow or subscribe on your podcasting app of choice. We will be back in some way, shape, or form early part of next week to talk through what transpires in these games. Of course, the deeper we get into next week, we'll be previewing all of week 1. A big college football weekend, 5 days worth of college football action starting on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday all the way through to Monday.
Right.
So it's going to be a very, very busy one for us. Keep it tuned right here. We'll give you all the information that you need to know, not just on the games, but when you can catch Dan and I. In the interim, though, remember verballers.com. Remember to follow us on social media.
Yep.
And, of course, if you're interested...
Bambino,
if you're over there. If you're over in Ireland, let us know. Send us pictures. We'd love to see them.
For sure.
Enjoy week 0, everybody. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty. We'll talk to you all in a few days. Stay solid.
Peace.